It's such a pleasure to have you join us today for this webinar on exploring new learning and teaching methods. I'm generally excited to see so many of you here, even if I have to scroll through several pages to catch a glimpse of everyone here on my screen. But what a wonderful sign of your interest and enthusiasm for this important topic. We've done our best to ensure the session meets your expectations, and I truly hope you find it valuable. Learning and teaching methods is, of course, a field that's constantly evolving, with new ideas and approaches being explored across Europe. It's been a central theme for AEC for many years, where working groups have been dedicating to following developments, sparking reflection, and creating space for meaningful discussions. But the work doesn't stop there. Investigating, surveying, and mapping out the landscape is just the beginning. What really excites us is when fresh ideas are brought to life through practical, real-world solutions. And that's exactly what we're going to hear about today. But before I hand over to Stefan Gies for further introductions, I just have to take a moment to mention that this is a very special day for us here at the AEC, because today it marks the conclusion of our flagship project over the last 3 years, ARTEMIS. It's been an incredible journey, and behind the scenes, we've been hard at work finalizing a wealth of reports, guidelines, and online materials. And once everything is approved by the European Commission, we'll be making this valuable treasure available to all of you. We truly hope it will inspire you to explore exciting new pathways of development, all for the benefit of our students, staff, and ultimately the vibrant world of music. And the excitement doesn't stop here. Tomorrow, we are embarking on a new chapter as we kick off a fresh Creative Europe Network project. As ambitious as ARTEMIS, this new initiative will look ahead to the future of higher music education. Together with all of you, we'll work to ensure that our graduates are equipped with tools and skills they need to shape the music world of tomorrow, one that will be an even stronger force for artistic and societal development. But enough from me now. I hand the floor or the screen over to Stefan for further introductions. Ready to go, Stefan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Finn, for this kind introduction. And welcome, everybody. I'm very glad to see that so many are interested in the topic. And I will go straight ahead sharing my screen. So just give me a moment for finding a technical solution. So now you should see it. As you can see, and as Finn already mentioned, the webinar is flagged as an ARTEMIS action. And ARTEMIS is, I have to go on. Yes. So ARTEMIS is the current EU-funded Creative Europe Network project AEC is running, and which will come very, very soon to its end. And as many of you might know, AEC has regularly been running Creative Europe Network projects in the past. And we are, as Finn already said, happy that the end of ARTEMIS will also at the same time be the start of a new project, which is this time very simply called AEC. Learning and teaching, student-centered learning, peer learning, digital learning, lifelong learning, all these are buzzwords that pop up across several chapters and work packages of AEC's next Creative Europe project. And learning and teaching will be featured maybe even more prominently in this new project than it has been under ARTEMIS, maybe as prominently as it was in the project before ARTEMIS, which is SMS, Strengthening Music in Society. Because SMS included for the first time in the history of AEC an own separate learning and teaching working group. That's why the purpose of today's webinar can also be seen as building a bridge between the activities of the old SMS learning and teaching working group and the emerging activities of corresponding activities in AEC's new Creative Europe project. In other words, it seems high time to revisit the topic. So let's start with a tour d'horizon of the work of the former SMS Learning and Teaching Group by answering these questions. When, why, who, what, where? When the SMS Learning and Teaching Working Group was active from 2017 to 2021, so it completed its work a little more than 3 years ago, but the results of the work live on. They are still accessible on the web, and they are still and will hopefully be the starting point for various individual initiatives to further develop the topic. If I say why, it's on the objectives. The SMS learning and teaching platform was launched with the general objectives to explore and discuss new learning and teaching models, enabling higher music education institutions to educate creative and communicating musicians, and to strengthen the ability of higher music education institutions to explore and discuss learning and teaching that meet the demands of the 21st century. 8 representatives of AEC member institutions from all across Europe composed these working groups, 3 of them from Norway, because the Norwegian Music Academy in Oslo was a co-organizer of this platform. 3 of the people you see on this photo are on the panel today: Siri, which is the 4th from the right, and Susanne, next on the right from your point of view here in the center, and me on the left. What was the outcome of this work of this SMS learning and teaching working group? I can only mention a few topics. The online platform LATIMPE. LATIMPE standing for Learning and Teaching in Music Performance Education. And this platform presents projects on learning and teaching at higher music education institutions from all over Europe, and gives access to a large number of a database, so to say, of publications and project documentations on the topic. 4 seminars and conferences were held, 2 of them on the topic directly related to the topic of today's webinar, one on students as researching artists and one on low latency streaming in music learning and teaching. Research was key in several respects. It was, of course, our ambition to be in close touch with the state of the art of current learning and teaching research and findings, to reflect on it and to carry out research ourselves. Among others, the working group was twice invited to contribute to the EPAM conferences, the annual meetings of the European Platform for Artistic Research in Music. The working group has also been involved in professional development activities, for example, by contributing to a teacher training boot camp. And last but not least, we launched a number of publications, mainly articles, but also podcasts. And as you can see here in light blue, and 300 and something page anthology dedicated to the topic, which is available both as a print and an online version. Where to find more information? On the AEC website by typing SMS and learning and teaching, on the LATIMPE website. I asked questions: what topics did the learning and teaching working group address? We had, of course, some ideas right from the start, and we had areas of work in mind, but this only became more precise as a kind of work of progress during the project. But what we had in mind from the outset was a clear idea about that this or our activities should be guided by the idea that the student owns his or her own learning career. In other words, our approach was based on the concept of the student as a researching artist and on the idea of student-centered learning. Just a small detail: to emphasize this approach, we decided to speak about learning and teaching, and not, and it was common at the time and still is to some extent, of teaching and learning. Content-wise, we finally turned out that we mainly focused on the following 5 topics: artistic research-based education and its implications for learning and teaching, forms and methods of collective learning and teaching, assessment and self-assessment, critique and self-critique, reflective practice, diversity and gender-sensitive learning and teaching in higher music education, and the use of digital tools in higher music education. So today's webinar was announced under the motto "Learning and Teaching in Times of Digitization." This does not mean that our topic today is digitization or digital learning. Our topic is learning and teaching. But we also want to underline that if it's our ambition to refresh, innovate, and update learning and teaching, we cannot do so without investigating, using, and further developing the potential offered by digital tools. So, before I give the floor to our 2 main speakers, it's a particular pleasure for me to welcome Siri Sturheim. Siri was the student member. We had one student member in every working group of the SMS Learning and Teaching group, working group, when she was still a master student at NMH Oslo. She has now completed her studies and gained some experience as a professional musician, both as a French horn player and as a social worker in the field of music, if I may say so, Siri. If not, correct me if I'm wrong. So Siri joins us today from South Africa, where she's currently working. Siri, thanks for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be in the AEC space again and to see all of you, new and old faces. So I only have a few minutes, and I have chosen to reflect a little bit upon how the student mindset have changed throughout these years from we started our work with the Learning and Teaching Working Group. In 2019, I, together with my friend, founded something called the Norwegian Music Student Conference, which was the first of its kind in Norway. And it was very much inspired by the principle we were working with at the time in the working group. And I've been looking back at this conference to kind of find a pointer of what music students have been occupied with ever since. So the first workshop had the title, What is Success? Also very much inspired by the AEC discussions at the time, because we felt that we were being measured by quite conservative one-dimensional standards. In 2022, the world was kind of ridden by crisis, and there was a lot of uncertainty, and we ended up with the title, What the hell are we going to do now? So it was very searching in a way, and us as music students trying to find our place in society and in the institution. After this, I retired from the conference, but it went on. And the 2023 conference had the title, Who is in Charge? So they were questioning the power dynamics in higher music education and investigating the power of definition, which I think is an important key. And also looking at, shouldn't there be more power of definition with the individual students? So I think the searching from the first edition became more concrete, and the students as a whole student body were working on taking ownership to their artistry and to their education. The last conference was in 2024, and the topic that they chose was in the same box, question mark. So this time they explored how your study program and your genre kind of determines the possibilities and the views that you have in the institution, and also how to cooperate across the board and look at similarities more than the differences. So I think these different topics from the conference really show us kind of how music students have evolved since I was a student, from feeling a little bit lost and trying to figure out why we were feeling lost, to really owning the narrative within the education and trying to defy those strict divisions and rules of genres and programs. Today, I see students who are demanding way more from their teachers and from their institutions, where my generation was more passive and to a bigger extent accepting a lot of the conservative and traditional sides of music education. And I also think in the best way, they have less respect for tradition. Also, amongst young people in general, there's a huge well-being and sort of self-optimization trend right now, especially in social media. And I think that this also colors the music students. I think they are taking better care of their mental health, and they also have less tolerance for the unhealthy and even abusive patterns, which unfortunately have been a part of our field for a long time. Also, I think that the institutions have started to acknowledge the fact, again, this is related to a lot of the principles we've been discussing in the learning and teaching work. They started to acknowledge the fact that a modern musician needs to be diverse and able to do different things rather than to be 100% specified. And I think this has led to a lot more openness and creativity, and also the opportunity for students to think outside the box. And when I was studying, I think that the students saw this and knew this, but they were always fighting with the institution to acknowledge this. So what I see now is that the institutions and the students are acknowledging this together and trying to improve the programs and the education and learning and teaching to actually answer to the needs of the labor market. And I think an important example of this is, at least in Norway, we see the increase of the free study programs, which are not genre or discipline specified, but it's more program-based, so that project-based, sorry. The students can follow their passions more than following a set curriculum. And last but not least, we know that the new generation of music students are tech savvy. And I think this, together with the fact that we have opened up the interdisciplinary space much more, I see much more of classical musicians exploring music technology, for example. And of course, the new generation is very good at exploring different ways of putting their art into the world and to create new sources of income as well. So yeah, that's a short reflection and analysis of the journey from my generation to today's generation within the time frame, I think.
Yes, thank you so much, Siri, for this very fresh and enlightening input. By the way, Siri has agreed on that she will come back later on, following after the two presentations, when she will take the floor again as a kind of respondent. And I think I'm very keen to hear how you, so to say, before the background and what you just exposed to us, will say something about the input from the speakers. So before I hand over to our first main speaker, allow me some technical comments. You are very welcome to ask questions to the speakers. Do so, please, via the chat. We will have a short Q&A immediately after each of the two presentations, which will follow. But please only ask at that point more factual, informative, comprehensive questions. In the last 15 minutes of the webinar, there will still be room for a discussion in the proper sense. And then as well, you can ask via chat, but we will give you, if you wish so, the opportunity to open your microphone and camera. So now to our first speaker. Unlike the others, Philip Ahna was not a member of the old SMS Learning and Teaching Working Group, but he is a member of the Digitisation Working Group in AEC's ARTEMIS project. The topic of digitization has an enormous scope and many facets. So the ARTEMIS Digitization Working Group defined digital learning and teaching / digital pedagogy as one out of 4 areas of work from the very beginning. It is therefore a particular pleasure for me that Philip is with us today, not only in his capacity as a member of the ARTEMIS Digitization Working Group, but also, if I may say, the one who is the expert for learning and teaching within this group. Philip, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you for the warm welcome. And first I have to apologize for any language mistakes. And the presentation is inspired by the work of the ARTEMIS Working Group Digitalization, but I will focus on the projects in Trossingen. So, that's the agenda. And on the bottom line, you see the places and projects I will talk about. And on the bottom is always a QR code for further information to the projects, or the right side, one QR code, and there you find all links to the projects. Above, there are the themes and subjects, the goals we are working on inside this projects. So let's start with Trossingen. Trossingen, a small town in the south of Germany, quite close to the border to Switzerland. Really small, with less than 20,000 inhabitants, but with a lot of music. And what is special, we have inside the University of Music the Landeszentrum Musik Design Performance, and there we have several professorships regarding digital technologies, digital arts. So we have a professor for digital performance, for digital composing, digital producing, digital themes in musicology, and as well in music education, and that is my field. So we have a lot of themes that also related to other topics in digital arts, but today we will focus on the projects that are related to learning and teaching in the field of digitalization. And in my field, I'm always working with a method design-based research. That means that we start with requirements, that we are looking for requirements in the practice, and based on that, we build learning and teaching designs. Then we implement these designs. Afterwards, we analyze these designs, and then we have outcomes at the level of learning and teaching designs just for the practice. And we have also research results that we publish in scientific papers. And then we start again and do it again, we do it again. And so it's an iterative cycle of this research project. Maybe you can mute your microphone. Thank you. And so the first project I just want to dive really short in is the Network 4.0. That's a network of 18 of the 24 German Musikhochschule. And there we work on themes all related to digitalization. And the goal is that we do a lot of collaboration and to connect the institution in higher music education, because we think it's better to do it together than for each institution by herself. And we are working on themes like digital technologies, learning management systems, or future skills, or teacher training, and so on. And that means we really meet in presence, not only digital, so in conferences, in workshops, on symposia, and so on, but we do also a lot of digital formats. And if you are interested in, just have a look on the QR code or on the webpage netzwerkmusikhochschulen.de. And there you find also a lot of outcomes. We call it Werke. This webpage is only in German, but I think it's not so difficult to translate it in English. The second project is the media project, so that in this project we started to equip our room and to train the teachers to work with this equipment. And this project is only settled in Trossingen, so that is quite common, that to equip the teaching learning rooms with equipment like this for remote teaching, for low latency teaching, and so on. And we do a lot of products and courses for the teachers that they can work with this equipment. But that is embedded in a concept that we do have 4 spaces in the media project. That means that we systematically researching and evaluating transformation processes in the field of context of digitalization, expanding artist teaching and learning practice, qualifying higher education teachers, and developing artistic study programs. So what is special in this program? I think special is that the main goal is to empower teachers. And in the principle of design-based research, we start with the needs, with the requirements of the teachers, and we do a lot of surveys, discussion, interviews to get out what are the needs of the teachers, what are their perspective, how to go on in teaching and learning in artistic fields, in scientific fields, in pedagogic fields, when they can use digital technologies in seminars or in a single lesson and so on. Based on that, we have a lot of on-demand lessons. So the list on the right side, they are all on-demand courses. So if teachers are interested in a subject, they can just choose and get individual or group lessons regarding these topics. The third project I just want to step in really shortly is the Cumus ProNet project. That is also a project together with 18 institutions, but mainly together with university, like great universities, but it's also a really big field in higher music education, especially in teacher training. And in Trossingen, we focus on mobile devices, fostering creativity through that devices. That means that we are looking for possibilities to foster creativity using tablets or smartphones together with things that are not normally used to be creative in the field of music or produce music, such as fruits or fork or knife or something else. And in this field, we also work with the principle of design-based research. The colleagues Lisa Werner and Tobias Roch built up this poster. Based on the TPEG model, we do a lot of interviews with the requirements or ideas in this field of the teachers. And based on that, we build up designs and implement them just now. So on the bottom, on the right side, you see one of the pictures. 3 weeks ago, we had some pre-tests for a new design with our students, how to work collaboratively with this kind of technology to improvise music based on the app Koala Sampler. So before I start with the last project, and that's a project I want to talk mainly about, is that everything I've been talking about until now are processes that, in my opinion, are quite common in all institutions in higher music education. We are all struggling with this kind of technologies. We are all struggling how to get more freedom for students and for teachers in learning and teaching programs and so on. In the project LevicoXR, we test and think about technical possibilities that are not now available at a level to use it in lessons like in the other projects. So the Levico project focus on VR and augmented reality themes that are just now prototypes or first thoughts about how could learning and teaching could be in the next years. And there we want to, I want you to just jump in a little bit deeper. And for that, I have some video clips and just some extracts to give you some insights. Let's start with this video clip. So as you can see, we work here in this project in the field of virtual reality, so in closed virtual environments, as well as in mixed environments, so where the real reality and the virtual reality is mixed, called augmented reality. And so we work in fields like producing or sampling, as well as in the field of conducting. And we do it together with the university in Osnabrück and the University of Applied Science in Düsseldorf. Just give you some ideas what can it work or what could it be in higher music education. Here an example to conduct or to work with the hands in the field of virtual realities. So here you can see, maybe you can mute your microphone on the train. Thank you. That is from the type of user a static virtual surrounding. That means that the virtual environment is reacting on the movement of the person, but is not related to the interest or the needs of the person. That in every situation, the virtual reality environment is reacting the same way. There's no difference if I will use it or somebody else will use it. And in this connection or this context, I will give you an insight what is going on this nowadays regarding digital technologies. This topic, a look into the crystal ball, 5 possible HMEIs headline I picked up yesterday from a very famous company who is dealing with the subjects. And regarding this field, there are 2 main developments I will focus on. The first is generative artificial intelligence. And it's really going on in the next time that they will offer flexibility and versatility in the content creation. And that means that this content is new, current, and for the user surprising. So the content is built up in relation to the person who is using this AI. The second theme is virtual reality and augmented reality. And the development is that is more and more an immersive experience, also in sound. So until now, most of the apps are only using stereo environments, but it's just more and more that they use complex systems of sound surroundings. And the second thing is that the lines between virtual and the real world is much and more blurring. What does it mean when these lines are much more blurry? So have a look into a last example. That's a NGP. That's a New Japan Philharmonic Orchestra, and they built up a project, an app that is called Virtual Club, based on Meta, so you can use it on every Meta glasses. And just have a look inside. So when you see this video clip, I was wearing these eyeglasses, Meta glasses, and I was aware in concert hall, and while using the controllers, I can choose where I want to be in the concert hall, to sit in the audience or to be on stage, and to switch my position to go really near to the musicians or to go in the end of the concert hall. And there, the sound is changing and depending where I'm in the room, but not so meter by meter. So the sound is different on stage and a little bit different if I go in the end of the audience hall. I will give you some more insights this app to give you examples what could be the next steps in higher music education. So that's the same video. I've been in this environment, and I will choose to be on stage and to go really close to the musician. How do they play? So this videos is produced using mixed reality. So these musicians really exist. They really played. That's a live performance recorded using 3D technology, and afterwards was transformed to holograms. So you can go through while wearing this Meta glasses, and In the next video, I will show you that there's a possibility to replace each musician, and I'm a French horn player too. So if I want to practice with these musicians on stage, I can say, just skip this French horn player, and instead of that, I will play this part together with the other musicians. So, and if a new piece starts, there's just some help to get in together with the other musicians. And it's not only focused on brass ensembles, so there's not so many choices until now, but they announced that they will build up more and more examples. Here's one more example in the field of string quartets. So maybe you have also already some ideas what you can do in classrooms or in study program for strings or brass instrument players and so on. But I will give you another impulse to think about. What also happens is that now we have a strong development in the field of learning experience platforms. That's something different, like learning management platforms as we know it from Canvas or from Moodle or Elias or different platforms. Because these platforms are responsive regarding to the interests and individual needs of the learners. That means that they combine push and pull learning. They offer contents, but they ask for information from the users and build up contents individually. That means that these platforms enables individual and iterative learning, are based on the interest, needs, and behavior, connects and networks learners with each other. So it's also a kind of collaborative learning. And these platforms are based on the integration of various bodies of knowledge from the internet, from text, from books, and so on, and offers the content in different formats such as audio, video, virtual realities, and it gives the possibility, or is based on that the learning process is always on demand of the needs of the learners. Oh, so 20 minutes are over. So that means that micro-learning is the main principle of this process. If we combine these three developments from development of virtual augmented realities, the generative artificial intelligence, and the learning experience platforms, that means that I think in the next years we will have a huge transformation of platform possibilities for learning in higher education. But that's the view in the crystal ball. I'm really looking forward for the discussion, the Q&A, and thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Philip. Thanks for leading us through this virtual augmented reality of higher music education. And are there any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but I've got also a message that there are too many participants. There are some system-wise reductions. Does it enable or disable you to put something in the chat? No. There are just no questions. I give you another 15 seconds to think about. Understood everything? Yes, okay. But
I would like how cost effective is the use of XR in teaching and learning?
please, Philip, but please ask your questions in the chat. Yeah, the next.
Okay, so
About the costs.
The costs for each set are between 400 and 700. It depends on the model you want to use. When you use Meta equipment, when you use the Apple equipment, it's in total about 4,000 euro for each set. And in addition to that, you have to buy the apps. For example, the app I have shown you costs about 35 euros. Yes, to use it for each set.
Thanks. So I think there are I don't see anything in the chat, so we can move on. So as Philip's presentation was about the potential of digital technologies to improve learning and teaching, also about digital empowerment of learners and teachers, I have to say. The next input will be about curriculum development and about how the results of the SMS learning and teaching activities can be put into practice in line with the latest developments, not only in society, labor market, as Siri has talked about, but also in research and in technology, of course. New technologies are an important part of this, but they are above all, in my view, a means to the end of innovating learning and teaching. But I think the next speaker can explain that much better than I can do. Welcome, Susanne van Els.
Thank you, Stefan. Can you all see my sharing the screen? Yeah. Yes, thumbs up. Just wanted to start to say that Philip apologized for language mistakes that he didn't make. And I need to give a disclaimer. It was really hard to translate, in my case, back to English, French texts. The Strengthening Music and Society project proposed a paradigm change on which the tagline for my department at the CNSMD in Lyon is based. I quote myself here. Within a changing world, we concentrate on the mission of music and musicians, create, teach, perform, and question society on how to be human today. A nice statement, but the question is, of course, how? How do we create curricula which provide young musicians with the skills to fulfill their roles as citizens with their art? As Stefan so eloquently presented, in the learning and teaching group of the SMS project, we were not so much concentrated on what to teach, nor how to teach. We focused on learning, and we looked for practical tools that would make it easier to translate the necessity of the musician's mission in society into the daily program at conservatoires. Our eureka moment came when we suddenly imagined something beyond student-centeredness. We envisioned what kind of a student we were talking about. And this is how we described it in our publication. As practical tools, we came up with 4 slogans, 4 concepts that we thought every conservatoire would be able to apply. Students have a voice as actors with responsibility for their own development. They can express themselves, question their own choices, and reflect on them. Teachers work together in relation to each other and to the students' program. All the actors within a conservatoire share the responsibility to provide a safe and healthy learning environment, whilst learning from each other and with each other. And assessment is seen as a continuum, and as an essential pillar in understanding and achieving quality, aimed at lifelong learning in professional practice. At the Seine-Saint-Denis Lyon, we work with these connected concepts. They are very helpful, and I think you might also recognize them as values for the Master Reform project, which I will now present to you. This project includes all of the diplomas of performance, composition, and music theory as a main subject. All the obvious reasons and goals played a role to start this process. On top, important practical goals were a program that suits the specific student group of Seine-Saint-Denis at Lyon, of students who are already fully engaged in professional practice and therefore a mostly modular, project-based organization of courses. No fixed profiles, but the possibility for each student to work as specialized or just as broadly as he wishes. So each other's own version of specialization. One model and one overarching competency frame for all diplomas involved, and as much as possible, a joint program in which our students meet each other and collaborate. Larger ECTS units within which we can more easily innovate flexibly. A sensible solution for music theory, not abolishing it in the master as we often see, but also differentiating it from the bachelor program approach. And working with the SMS values and outcomes, obviously. So the starting point was that we needed to rethink our approach, thus creating more space for the student to fulfill this role of being responsible for his own development, the driven, active student who takes on the challenge of benefiting maximum from these 2 master studies years. And this is what we have arrived at and what we'll introduce in September 2025, so this year. The program is made up of 3 domains that form a unity. Artistic is the pillar within which the main discipline is represented. Research and practice allows students to deepen and contextualize the artistic project with a critical mind and a profound knowledge of the profession. And mediation enables students to become actively involved in society as artists. The référentiel de compétences, so the competency set or the referential of competencies, has the same recognizable shape in French of the 3 domains, and now in English. And for the underlying competencies, we worked with the CALOHEX competencies for the master. And we are actually really very happy that it fits so well. We brought them back from 8 to 7. And it was a wonderful exercise to place them under the 3 axes in relation with the 3 domains of education. I hope you recognize CALOHEX in this poor translation of some beautiful French phrasing of overarching competencies for, as said, 3 diplomas from which performance, which captures, of course, early music, vocal studies, etc., etc. Anyway, this is what it looks like in study points. The artistic domain, main subject, chamber music, acting for singers, etc., etc., all the stuff that we know, and the artistic research as we have it in our French National Supérieur Conservatoire, they don't change with this reform. Pratique, practice, and mediation are new, so I'll focus on these. Practice implies a big change. This is a box which students can fill with a multitude of activities connected to their artistic practice, towards or in connection with the profession or their specialization. There are several categories: own projects, inside school, outside school, participation in participation in the student festival with your own production, participation in an orchestra audition, work as a summer festival programmer, being a member of the student council, electives at the university, etc., etc. All this is validated by the main teacher and the head of department together, based on a proper motivation beforehand and reflection afterwards. Also possible, students in specialized masters with the professional practice, like the orchestra master, have their weeks in the professional orchestra validated here. And so now we have a fixed model for all kinds of specialized master's programs, with the percussion group in Lyon, with the opera choir, etc., etc. A far-reaching decision, and I'm still speaking about the box of practice, a far-reaching decision was how to deal with music theory. And this decision also ended up here: music theory in practice, so to speak. No fixed or compulsory program, but an offer based on the demand and ideas of students and teachers together. Examples: an analysis project around a particular chamber music piece, a module in which a teacher can share his specific expertise with students from another main subject, etc., etc. The other fundamental decision is the last one: mediation, which means reaching out to audiences, the musician as a citizen. And this will be for all master students, compulsory. There will be 4 different types of mediation to choose from. And again, this will be for mixed groups of all the students involved in these diplomas. Now, another very important goal for us: all this needs to come off the paper. The model is thought in circles, with the main subject domain as a central starting point. But how to put that in practice? The clue lies in the design in semesters, and specifically in semester 1. Here, the student is given the time to change perspective. In the bachelor, the program was leading, imposed, and now the student must consider what he wants to do in the 2 years ahead of him. These are the kind of images that we're producing now to communicate the planning. There's nothing specific for you into it. It's just to show the way we are preparing the communication on all this. This change of perspective is a validated activity. It's called l'élaboration du projet, which sort of means developing the project. And it more or less goes like this: the student receives a document with questions which evoke a reflection on his professional ambitions and study goals in the first weeks of the first semester, where there is just the main subject lessons in his schedule, in which, of course, these kinds of questions are also central in the dialogue with the main subject teacher. The student starts to note his reflections in the document, starts to consider possibilities and choices within the rest of the program, meanwhile working with the research team on defining a research topic. Mid-October, we have in our planning an already existing week, which is free of lessons. And now we will also place there and organize there 2-hour sessions of small groups of Master 1 students, in which main subject teachers and representatives of the other program parts gather to hear the students talk about their reflections so far and discuss possible choices. This is also the source for proposals in the music theory domain. So in semester 1, and I'm focusing again just on the 2 domains, practice and mediation, the student concentrates on his main subject whilst preparing for and starting to work on his research project and designing, accompanied by all the teaching team, the rest of his program. You can see that this leads to the program activities in these domains, practice and mediation, to play in semesters 2 and 3. And as said, their organization will be modular. And semester 4 then allows the students to focus on his final projects, finishing the research, defending his research product, and performing the recital. As you see in semester 1, there is the session d'ouverture, in a poor translation, opening sessions. And this is an exploration of the contemporary societal context. For next September, 3 major themes are addressed and the links between them: ecology, interculturality, and mediation. This leads to discussions around redefining success, rethinking the place of the arts in a diverse society, and in a world that needs to come to terms with sobriety. Where to meet audiences, how to be an artist citizen today. There will be lectures, workshops, practical sessions, and open stages. And here, for the diehards amongst you, the curriculum overview. In the upcoming 2 years, before the first new master students perform their recitals, we will already experiment with, I'm talking about assessment, with selected study sections, a well-described procedure for a pass-fail assessment, including a conversation based on the extended program notes that you see validated here in the curriculum overview. So the conversation will be based on the extended program notes of the student, his recital, and the set of competencies. And the student and the jury will engage in a conversation about that in the pass-fail construction of validating the main subject. Coming back to the core work of the learning and teaching group, the text that I showed just before, and highlighting this time other phrases. In our new master model, as we imagine it, students don't just have choice options they are co-creators of education. And with the assessment being based on a dialogue about their choices, the laboratory function for the arts will thrive. The team of music theory teachers have been working intensely on this fundamental change, affecting both the content and the organization of their work. And I really praise them for their willingness and their courage to engage in this process. Triggers for them were the place around the table that they will have co-creating the program with the students, and also the invitation to share their expertise, their specific artistic expertise. So not just be the music history teacher, but being able to propose a module with some specific expertise that he or she brings. There is a counter voice of some of the orchestra instrument teachers, and it has indeed been very difficult to engage them in all the working group and information sessions in which they have not been overly present. But actually, as this model is very much based on best practices already present at our school, and on the identity of this young school, and on what has already been expressed in our vision document from 2021, and as there is no way that this model can be perceived as a reduction or lesser appreciation of the importance of the main subject or the artistic practice, I'm confident that we will agree on things. To finish, some keywords from the process, and just reflecting on the large one, presence. When it comes to digital learning and teaching, we are not sure where to go. Because when questioning ourselves on the quality of lessons, we find that one of the measuring points for us is whether those can compete with the digital format. So whether they are worth it to demand students' presence. We concentrate in concerts on what could be seen as new formats of presentation, but the big purpose is to maximize the impact of the event with inevitable artistic and human presence on stage. We talk about the pedagogical effect of being present, the importance of being there. And we're looking forward to the key moments in the new master, which will have the format of a live joint dialogue. We recently have started to organise many more collective memorable events, like the opening of the school year in presence. And for the crucial conversations about this master reform, we decided to work with real presence on site only. Maybe, but it's a question, maybe arts education should be the oasis in which time, space, presence is the source of today's arts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there was two great inputs from you, and I think a lot of interesting, not maybe contradictory, but inspiring discussion, inspiring inputs. But before we go there, I promise that we will now give Siri the floor again. And Siri, you talked about the change in mindset of the students. And how do this relate to what you heard in the last 45 minutes?
Ooh, I think you need to give me 30 more minutes because there's a lot to unpack here. Thank you so much for really interesting presentations. To start with, Philip, I think that it really shows us a lot of opportunities with the virtual reality, especially the chance to do things that otherwise would require a lot of people or a lot of resources, and maybe offers that the institution can't give the students in real life, so to speak. Another thing I want to take from Philip's presentation is the empowering of the teachers and the digital empowering of the teachers. And this is so important, not only when it comes to digitization, but I think a lot of the issues that I and a lot of other students have had in higher music education comes from the fact that the teachers don't feel comfortable with a lot of things or a lot of new ideas or curriculum. Not that they're necessarily opposed to it, but if you don't feel comfortable teaching something, you'd rather avoid it. And I think that with all the new ideas that we want to imply in the institutions, we need to upskill and empower the teachers rather than tell them, do this, do that. And we need to know that they're actually able to take this, the ideas and the knowledge, and actually integrate it in their teaching so that it can benefit the students. When it comes to Susanne's presentation, I'm quite passionate about master programs because I think that's a very important part of the work we've been doing with learning and teaching. And in higher music education, not everywhere, but a lot of places, we've gone into the trap of making the master degree just a continuation of the bachelor's degree. The same format, the same content, the same requirements, just on a higher level of playing or conducting or composing. And I think this is a big mistake that many places now are trying to move on from. And when I was studying in the US, I even saw doctorate programs that was just exactly the same as we were doing in the bachelor degree. So I think that we need to look at other higher education disciplines and see that a master's degree must be a platform where the students have to reflect and have to create. And I think, and we've been talking about this in the SMS project as well, like to what degree we can focus on the craft. I would say that in a bachelor's degree, yes, it can be a little bit passive to a certain extent, and you can work on learning the craft, learning the basics, learning the history. But when you get to a master level, you need to be able to do your own project, have your own ideas, and get ready for working life. Because if we have this sort of passive master's degree, that is basically a bachelor's degree, you'll get a shock when you start working. So I really love this principle. I love the practice module, also because it enables, if I understand it correctly, quite a diverse possibility. Like you can put a lot of different professional activities in there. And I think that will be very validating for the students who feel a little bit trapped by the orchestra program or certain expectations of what they need to do. So I think that would be really interesting to follow. And I also think that having the same structure in different master's program is a very big strength for an institution, because it makes it much more easy for the students to cooperate across disciplines and across genres. And it makes it also easy to put in these modules where they actually meet in mixed groups. And even if that is something that is not directly artistic or musical, they meet and they get to know each other. And from that, they can cooperate. So I think master programs is really a key for us to develop. And I think we had some really, really inspiring points from Lyon. And it will be very interesting to see how it goes. And I feel like doing another master's now. Thank you.
But Siri, thank you very much, I think, for adding these really valuable thoughts on the two inputs. I think we have a broad spectrum now to discuss. And so please feel free to contribute, to ask questions, to raise your hand, to write in the chat, whatever you want. So maybe I have a first question, if you still have time to reflect. The one thing is, Siri, you said in your very first presentation that students are more demanding. I mean, I think that's something which every generation can say. And I would say from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that the students were more demanding than maybe the generation before. The main point for me is, are they better listened than they were earlier? And that brings me together with the question I would ask also to Sanam. Maybe it's more a question, because I'm not sure if I understood correctly. If you talk about this music theory on demand, so to say, is it individualized, or is it rather a kind of, do you collect, so to say, student wishes and requirements and feedback, and you change the curriculum against collective feedback from the students?
To me first, or yeah, okay.
Whomever.
Yeah. You understood well when you represented it. So the last phrase was absolutely correct. The basis for this is that students also hear, they are in small groups, so they hear each other talk also about their ideas for their master's program. And we're there. And so looking at the music theory team, they're also present. So from there, it's not like à la carte, but at that moment, we understand students' needs, students understand and get great ideas from each other. And then we start to create, not change the curriculum, because the curriculum with the large boxes is as it is, but we create the offer. So at that moment, for instance, string quartets can say, actually, Opus 59 would be nice to have a collective course, analyzing, etc. And at that moment, we are in semester one. We still have time in October, November, December. We create the module. It will be project-based. Even in this, we can look at each other's schedules, etc., etc. The teachers will have their hands free. And then in January, we'll put it in the program and everybody can subscribe. And at that moment, also other students interested can subscribe to this module and fill a part of their box of practice with it. Does that sound logical?
Yes, absolutely. It's more clear now, I think.
Yeah.
Zoe is asking, or it's more commenting about that student choice of their activities in a master level, or that taking their own ownership can be overwhelming, I would say overburdening maybe. Siri, what you said, and I like that very much. What do you think? How do students have to be prepared properly in order not to be overwhelmed by taking control of their own learning career as a master's?
It's a very good question. It's a really valid concern as well. But I think that we need to utilize the years of the bachelor studies, which in most cases is 4 years, right? So that needs to be organically building and giving the opportunity to students to have more and more responsibility. Hopefully, maybe in the last year of the bachelor's, you'll have some sort of project that you need to do, either individually or in a group, not as big as a master project, but something to prepare you for that kind of responsibility, I think. And then the more we have kind of discussions like this and we meet across different countries, we can maybe kind of unify a little bit in those ideas that a student that graduates from a bachelor's degree should be able to start doing this kind of work that Susanne describes. But I also agree that it's really important to have good structures, because we can't just say, okay, do whatever you like, right? It's going to be way too challenging. So we really need to work on how you facilitate and how you really make a structure where it's comfortable for a master student to work and where they also have the opportunity to fail, which is really important, with good guidance.
Can I add one other, because I fully agree with Siri and what she says about it. And of course, we have chosen at this moment for a differentiation of the cycle where the bachelor is quite firm and strict and then opening up in the master. So that gives a big responsibility to us to accompany and give time to the students for this change of perspective. But one important thing I find when indeed you encounter the situation or problem or challenge that Zoe so rightfully describes is, where is the main subject teacher in this? Because the main subject teacher is the first referent of the student. We can talk about tutoring, etc., etc. The main subject teacher is all that in our education. And so inviting the main subject teacher to, alongside with his students in Master 1, take this role, be there at the source of the process, and then share this with the rest of the teaching team, like the rest of the program. We hope that that can be key into creating this openness and this activity, and that students find themselves not talking to other people who ask other kinds of positioning than, for instance, their main subject teachers. There might be a positive effect on the main subject teachers as well. I don't want to over-exaggerate there, but...
Yes, thanks. Thanks a lot. Sandrine?
Yes, thank you so much for this moment all together and this both presentation. Maybe first of all, one comment regarding the project of the master curriculum in Lyon. Maybe it's a French reaction, but I do think that we can also think of this kind of way of doing a curriculum at the bachelor level. Why am I saying that? I think that we welcome in higher music education in France specifically, but I think in other European countries also, we welcome musicians that are already spend a lot of time being trained in music school and so on. So I think that we can maybe have this kind of curriculum design for bachelor level. And I'm saying that because in my institution, we are trying to build upon this kind of way of thinking curriculum. And maybe I could also add something about the discussion that's just have been talked before about the way of, it's not an open things for students. Most of the time when we are talking about project-based learning, I will add that it is contract-based learning. We are dealing things with students. It's not open things. We have some willing about maybe the constraint that we want them to face. We have some how do you say in English, des enjeux, some big point. Challenges. Thank you. Some challenges that we want students to face, also to be prepared for professional life. So I think it's maybe project-based learning, but also contract-based learning. We are still there to help them dive into their own subject, but we can be resources and we can be guides for them. And maybe to come back to also the question of digitization, and now I will. I talked a lot with Philip regarding this huge subject about learning and teaching, and I'm still fighting in my own head. I'm still questioning: is there really changement because of digitization in learning and teaching processes? I will try to explain my thought. When we are talking about learning, we still learn quite the same way as yesterday. We need to learn, we need peers, we need knowledge, and we need to practice, we need to put hands on. And I think this is quite the same regarding the new tool that we have, which is digitization. Through digital tools, we can learn from peers, we can learn hands-on, and we can find some knowledge. So this is, for me, maybe the learning process. And when I look at teaching process, I say, okay, there is maybe some change of paradigm, but which is not, for me, a change of paradigms. I think we missed the points years ago regarding the teachers as the one who knows. Okay, it was the paradigm of the last century. But now we have a lot of way of finding knowledge, not learning, but finding the knowledge. And maybe the role of the teachers are to build the frame in which the student will dive into the knowledge, will dive into the practice. And tools can be something that we can use for that. And Philip's show us a lot of new tools, a lot of new environment in which we can dive. When I say that, we need skills for that. I totally agree. But I'm still wondering about the question of learning and teaching in the digital world. Just to say that we have new tools, for sure. And but I don't know if it's changing. But this is my big question for you, for you all.
I think that this is a big question indeed, and the changing role of the teachers will be, as you say, is a challenge that we can make not only one more webinar out of it, but maybe more of them. We keep track. Finn.
Yeah, and thank you both Philip and Susanne for really exciting presentations. And I have questions for both of you. Maybe I start with Susanne. This seems to be a really exciting transition and something quite new and fresh that you have developed in Lyon. And I was looking from a leadership perspective. We have been talking about internal advocacy, and how did you design a process that led to changes like this? Because changes often causes anxiety, and so how did you go about that? Can you say that in 3 sentences?
Yeah, I hope so, Finn. It's an absolutely very important question. So there's no recipe here. The situation is, and I'm really honest also. Within our community, we have a vision document from 2021 in which all these elements have already been stated. It just hasn't been worked on yet. That I arrived here only a bit more than 2 years ago, and I saw and noticed very many best practices within the school that simply were not structured or coherent or underpinned with the documents and some theory. So there was a lot simply to build on. So I really also talk about it as a master reform project and not like a changing or the new master or whatever, because there's many elements that I simply sort of, put together in my head. But then, of course, how to find the language, which in my case is an interesting project, because of course I'm lost in translation, and being lost in translation can be very, very good because it takes some pace out of discussions. We really need to understand, when I try in my French to explain a kind of an English-based pedagogical principle, etc., and people come back to me with their language. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful process. So that might have been one of the key values for this, trying to understand each other and trying to understand yourself, because it forces you to really understand what you're talking about and how you're thinking. And then I'm still a bit in doubt because I started to organize things, you might say the Dutch way, very flat, working groups, open dialogues with, of course, a good agenda, etc., etc. And well, there's no judging in this, but Sandrine will also tell me, and actually my colleagues tell me, the French way is much more to come to the table with an opinion than to come to the table with the desire to find out where to go together. I try to make this sound not too negative because for me it's been a big learning process, but I can't say that this has been. It has been very well designed, but really from my perspective, and we still have work to do.
Thanks. Time is flying. I ask the last. There are still questions in the air, but please make it as short as possible. And as it relates really to what you have been talking now, I will just take first the question that Isabel is asking. How do you make teachers take ownership of this form of curriculum design? Just very shortly, Susanna.
Well, one of the things in negative reactions is that we immediately mention, thank you very much for your engagement, because the biggest problem, I think, usually in conservatoires is that, the pigeon, we call it here TGV teachers, the teachers arriving by train and, leaving and just seeing their very important bit of the big puzzle. So I think, in fact, it's wonderful. Resistance is also wonderful because, of course, it means that people are engaged. And then I think in this model, it's for me, and also how I'm being perceived, it's very important to stress that I'm absolutely not I'm actually placing the main subject and the main subject teachers in the center of the whole project.
Thanks. Maybe one last question to Philip, because we have talking a lot about student-centered learning, and I can imagine that the majority of the students they don't have the know-how and maybe not the experience in these kind of very specialized digital tools in order to, so to say, to really bring in their voices based on some kind of expertise. How do you deal with that? Very shortly.
Yeah, so that's maybe linked with the program is running in Lyon. So besides this project, we also redefine our curriculum and the programs in the bachelor and master degrees. And we give the students, beginning from the next year, the possibility to choose a profile with 30 credits to focus on special themes. And in this field, they can also focus in this subjects. We call it creative arts practice. And inside this profile, they have the possibility to do it. But we are not able to empower all more than 400 students in this field. So we start maybe with 20 or 40 or something else. And the second thing is that for every student in the bachelor and master degree, we implement a small module with 6 credits that every student has to deal in the field of this new environments in digital fields, so that we have a base qualification for all students and to choose a subject if they want.
Thanks a lot. We have 3 minutes left. We are exactly in time. I don't see no more hands other than Finn's, who anyway has the last word today. So before handing over to him, I say thank you very much for these very inspiring contributions, all 3 of you, Siri, Philip, and Susanna. Thank you for the lively discussion. I think we have food for thoughts to be kept on discussing. And so thanks, and I hope you've learned something, and it was nice to meet you. I hand over to Finn.
Well, thank you, Stefan. And just before making final comments, I saw the hand of Anna Maria Bodin just before. So did you deliberately take it down, or do you still have a super quick question?
No, it's done. Thank you so much, but I listen to Susanne. It's okay. Thank you so much, Finn.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Just didn't want to leave you out here. So, well, also for me, thank you very much. Thank you for great presentations, and I mean personally, I found Philip's presentation of the concept of augmented reality really exciting, and where you can substitute a player with your own performance. It brings for sure new perspectives of learning in the future, and I will be able to use it with meetings at the EU Commission when I want the Commission to give more priority to higher music education. I'll try to use it that way. And Susanne's impressive reform, I'm really impressed by it, and the way that students and teachers have been working together, and I'm very excited to see how it goes when it finally comes into life here in the fall. So congratulations with that. So yes, thank you everybody for being here, following us this morning. It was a pleasure having you. And I look forward to seeing you again, learning and teaching, and other webinars will be at the program also in the new EU project. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. But for now, thank you for coming and have a good weekend. And yes, thank you.